The report on Patton's desk said the camp was calm, but when his car entered without warning, one German prisoner was being dragged away from the infirmary. A guard was hiding bloodied bandages under a crate, and the commandant kept repeating that nothing unusual had happened, forcing Patton to stop in the middle of the yard and look at every officer, every guard, and every silent prisoner, as the same question became impossible to avoid. The trouble began with a clean report that arrived before sunrise, stating that the German POW camp had no unrest, no medical complaints, and no discipline problems requiring outside attention. By mid-morning, Patton's staff car entered the camp without notice, and the first thing he saw was not calm, but a German prisoner being rushed across the yard by two guards. The commandant stepped forward quickly and said the prisoner had fallen during routine work, but the man was being taken away from the infirmary, not toward it. Patton ordered the guards to stop, and when the prisoner turned, a fresh bandage slipped from his sleeve and fell onto the dirt. The camp doctor came out of the infirmary holding a tray of used dressings, then froze when a guard tried to push a crate in front of the disposal bin. Patton looked from the crate to the doctor, then ordered the bin opened in front of everyone. Inside were bloodied bandages, broken buttons, and a torn prisoner tag that should have been recorded as medical evidence. The commandant repeated that the injuries were minor, but the doctor's face changed when Patton asked whether every wound had been entered into the medical book. The doctor hesitated long enough for the yard to hear the lie before he spoke. Patton ordered the gates closed, the work trucks halted, and every officer with access to reports brought to the administration building. Before noon, the clean report had become the first piece of evidence, because the camp it described did not match the camp Patton had just walked into. Subscribe for more forgotten German POW stories like this one. The escalation began when Patton ordered the medical book placed beside the morning report, and the missing entries appeared within minutes. 3 prisoners had been treated after dark, but their injuries were listed as work fatigue, stomach pain, and minor scratches. The doctor admitted he had changed the words after a guard sergeant told him the commandant did not want outside questions. Patton had the sergeant brought in, and the man denied everything while standing beside the same crate he had tried to move. The captain ordered the crate opened again, and this time a military policeman found 2 prisoner belts, a torn shirt cuff, and a folded note written in German. The interpreter read the note aloud, and it named prisoners warned not to report injuries after night inspections. The commandant tried to interrupt, saying prisoners often lied to protect each other, but Patton ordered him away from the interpreter. That single movement changed the room, because now the commandant was no longer explaining the case. He was part of it. Outside, prisoners began pointing toward the laundry shed, and one work orderly stepped forward with a broom handle marked by dried blood near the grip. The shed was searched, and military police found a hidden bucket of rags, 2 missing medical forms, and a guard roster with several names crossed out. By evening, the first lie had opened into a chain of lies, with the doctor, the sergeant, and the commandant all giving different versions of the same morning. Patton ordered every witness separated before nightfall because he knew the next lie would be written to match the last one. The major consequence came the next morning when Patton ordered a full camp inspection without using the commandant's staff to guide it. Military police took control of the office, the infirmary, the laundry shed, and the guard barracks while prisoners were counted by independent officers. The first search found letters hidden in a desk drawer from prisoners who had complained about night searches and never received replies. The second search found an altered duty roster showing that certain guards had been moved after each injury, making it harder to connect them to one location. The third search reached the food store, where a prisoner spokesman produced a small notebook listing names, dates, and unexplained removals from barracks. That notebook matched the missing medical entries almost exactly, and the commandant could no longer claim the problems were isolated. Patton ordered the doctor relieved from camp duty pending review, not because he had caused every injury, but because he had allowed false records to protect the men who did. The guard sergeant was stripped of his weapon and placed under military police watch after another guard admitted he had ordered the infirmary door closed during night treatments. The commandant tried one final defense, saying he had kept the truth quiet to avoid panic, but Patton ordered his official report stacked on the table beside the recovered evidence. The consequence was visible to the whole camp when officers carried boxes of files from the commandant's office and prisoners saw the papers leaving under guard. By sunset, the camp was no longer being run by the men who had described it as calm. The lie had not protected order because it had destroyed the authority of every officer who signed it. The reversal began when everyone expected Patton to address the prisoners first, but he ordered the American officers and guards into the yard and left the German POWs behind the wire to watch. He stood in front of the commandant's staff with the false report in one hand and the torn prisoner tag in the other. Then he said the words that ended the last excuse. "The enemy did not disgrace this camp today. You did." No one moved, because the accusation had landed on the American side of the fence. Patton ordered the interpreter to repeat the statement in German, not for drama, but so the prisoners would understand that the blame was not being shifted onto them. The commandant tried to object, but Patton cut him off and ordered his authority suspended until higher review. The guard sergeant was marched out of formation by military police, while the doctor was ordered to remain available as a witness instead of returning to the infirmary. Patton then turned to the prisoners and ordered a new complaint line opened at the infirmary, witnessed by an outside officer, an interpreter, and a prisoner representative. He also ordered every injury photographed, recorded, and signed by someone outside the camp staff before any report could be sent upward. The reversal changed everything because the prisoners had expected denial, while the guilty officers had expected protection. Instead, Patton made the lie itself the crime that had broken the camp. Before leaving the yard, he ordered the false report pinned to the investigation file with the words "contradicted by inspection" written across the top. The final irreversible event came after midnight, when a clerk caught the suspended commandant trying to remove a packet of papers from the office stove. Military police seized the packet before it burned and found draft reports describing the injuries as prisoner misconduct, poor hygiene, and self-inflicted damage. One page carried tomorrow's date, proving the cover story had been prepared before the investigation was finished. Patton was awakened in the guest quarters and returned to the office still wearing his field coat, while the commandant stood under guard beside the stove. He read the draft pages one by one, then ordered the commandant, the guard sergeant, and two cooperating officers removed from the camp before sunrise. A transfer car arrived before breakfast, and the men were taken through the gate while the prisoners watched from barracks windows. No speech was given, but the sight was enough to show that the old chain of lies had been broken beyond repair. The false medical book was sealed as evidence, the hidden letters were copied, and the prisoner notebook was placed in a protected file. By noon, a new temporary commandant took charge and ordered the infirmary door kept open during all prisoner treatment. The first complaint line formed that afternoon, and each man received a numbered receipt instead of a warning to stay quiet. When the evening report was sent to headquarters, it did not say the camp was calm. It said the camp was under correction, and that sentence could not be unwritten. A week later, the yard still carried the memory of the day Patton stopped believing the reports and started reading the evidence on the ground. The prisoners moved through count under new officers. The infirmary records stayed open for inspection, and the false report remained sealed in the file. When the temporary commandant signed his first clean report, he added one line that changed the camp more than any order. Calm would no longer be accepted unless the facts proved it. Most people know how World War II ended. Very few know what happened inside these prison camps. Subscribe for more untold WWII stories.